Kevin Stefanski's Cleveland Browns did just about everything you possibly need to try and get them out of the mess that has been created with the Deshaun Watson. We know how catastrophic that trade has been, but they decided this year to trade down from that number 2 slot to not take Travis Hunter, the potential two-way star, to add a second-round pick early in the second round, which they used for Quinshon Judkins, and at the number 5 spot, draft the Michigan Wolverine, Mason Graham. For a lot of Cleveland Browns fans that follow Ohio State Buckeye football, they didn't like the move, but they understand most likely how good of a player Mason Graham is. Of course, they're fired up about Quinshon Judkins, though, on the offensive side. They've got their running back of the future. He'll split a little bit of time, of course, with Jerome Ford, now that Nick Chubb is no longer with the team. The quarterback spot was what was fascinating, though, is many people thought they might go Shdeur Sanders at one point in time at the 2 spot. They wind up going with Shdeur in the 5th round after they had already taken Dillon Gabriel. Why I'm very excited for the 2025 Cleveland Browns season is because if it goes great and they make a run possibly as a playoff team, amazing. You're in the playoffs, see what happens. But if it doesn't, they could draft the quarterback in 2026. There's nothing to say just because you draft 2 quarterbacks one year, you can't go get another guy the following season. If this thing falls apart a little bit and it really shows that the quarterback position is unstable, whether it be Kenny Pickett or Joe Flacco or Shdeur Sanders or Dillon Gabriel or even Watson trotted out onto the field with that Achilles magically repairing, like, it might be evidence in my estimation that they might need to go draft a quarterback, and that's fine because you invested 3rd, 5th round picks to see if you had the guys and maybe keep them on the roster. But anyway, the 2025 Browns regular season gets off to what is just a ridiculous start as far as the schedule. Like, the schedule gods and NFL gods just wanted to smite Cleveland for some reason. They start off with the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, you might be seeing this as a matchup that is more favorable because of what Cincinnati does, but also remember, in the last 4 years, like, they've been to 2 AFC Championship games, and they actually beat the Chiefs in one of them and got a little bit robbed by the refs in the other one. So I've got a Cincinnati win 24-17 at the Dog Pound week 1 in the home opener for Cleveland. Would love to see them establish a sense of the run, and against these teams especially that are tougher to play. I mean, obviously you play Joe Burrow twice and Lamar Jackson twice, and these are teams that are so great. Like, Baltimore will just suffocate you running the football, playing great defense. Can the Browns establish a sense of the run and keep themselves in games in the 4th quarter because they can run the ball, not turn it over, no matter what the quarterback play? If it's inconsistent, run the ball 25, 30 times with Stefanski. We know he wants to establish that with Minnesota for such a long time. And as a head coach, that was the identity of what he wanted to do. Week 2, they are at the Baltimore Ravens. As I said, this is brutal. It continues to get a little bit worse after this. At Baltimore, have them losing 26-20. And as Browns fans, please be patient with this team, because if you look at the AFC, it's insane with how good the level of quarterbacks are. We've never seen quarterbacks at this level in the history of the National Football League littered throughout. Like, there are 5 guys in the AFC. And so that's what leads me to think if you start 0-2, losing to divisional teams in matchups, that's like, we kind of already don't have a shot at the division, losing 2 divisional games against the Bengals and the Ravens and 26-20 loss. So it's like, okay, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about who the quarterback should be. Maybe I'm watching a little bit of college football and seeing how these guys are playing on Saturdays, because we might be wanting to pick one of them in the 2026 NFL draft. It's week 3. Like, I'm already talking about the draft. Like, what are you doing, man? It's because you're playing the Green Bay Packers and then the Lions on the road and then the Vikings Tottenham Stadium for you Premier League fans. Like, that is just such a tough stretch. The 2 divisional games and those 3 all playoff teams from the NFC North. Of course, the Browns being in the AFC North. I've got a loss 10-24 against the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay is committed to the ground game and putting Love in the best possible spots. A guy like Matthew Golden just makes things so much easier from a game plan standpoint if you're Matt LaFleur, because it allows you to get the ball out of Love's hands and just let Golden do what he does with the football and his 4.29 40 speed. And that Green Bay team playing good defense as well. The inconsistency and a lack of great quarterback play rears its ugly head again. At the Detroit Lions, I have them scoring 13 points against Detroit's 27. That offense is as good as it gets. They've scored over 1,000 points combined the last 2 years. The only other team in the NFL to do that is the Baltimore Ravens. They've had one of the best offenses. Of course, though, they don't have Ben Johnson calling the shots, calling the plays on offense, but they do have everybody on offense except for the center and Frank Ragnow. They brought in Tate Ratledge, the guard out of Georgia, for a reason. And then defensively, they're better. Like, they had all those takeaways last year, maybe not as many, but certainly if they get to the playoffs, they'll be in a better spot to win because of Aleem McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson being healthy, Kirby Joseph, and Brian Branch, and Jack Campbell, and they drafted Tyleek Williams for you Buckeye Brown fans out there, but a loss to drop them to 0-4 before they head overseas to play the Vikings. I didn't like that they don't have a bye after their game overseas, have them losing 28-16. So a start of 0-5 will for sure have fans looking a lot more at college football and seeing what the quarterbacks are, because I see the Browns as a decent roster with the pieces in place, having a guy like Mason Graham and Judkins that can be foundational parts of this team. Of course, there's Myles Garrett, who I haven't even talked about. He's going to be one of the top players in football. You don't need to talk about him because everybody does, and you know what impact he's going to have. 17.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, be in the running for Defensive Player of the Year. That's what Myles Garrett is. Denzel Ward, of course. It's so sad about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He was just such a talented darn player. And to see him not be on the field, it just hurts Cleveland. But again, that first round pick that you get from Jacksonville, they don't pan out in my opinion. I got them at 7-10 to be a great team. You get their pick and your pick, potentially 2 top 10 picks in the 2026 draft. Of course, you could do anything. You could go get the number 1, whatever you want to do at the quarterback spot in that draft. But we're back to the season, of course. Stay focused, Blitz. At the Steelers, week 6, they get their win. First win of the season against the Aaron Rodgers-led Pittsburgh Steelers. How sweet would that be to just stick it to Aaron Rodgers? See the stuff back here. Of course, we're going to bring it up. Beating Aaron Rodgers and saying, like, we needed a win. It feels better. The food tastes better. Everything is better. Getting a W, especially against the Pittsburgh Steelers, our bitter division rivals. This is where we get to see some bit of Quinshon Judkins show us exactly why he was drafted so high. And the offensive weapons, we see David Njoku maybe make a play here or there. And then on the outside, like Cedric Tillman, the former Tennessee star, Jerry Jeudy, Deontay Johnson, who you brought over. Maybe DeAndre Carter, who was with the Chicago Bears a year ago, maybe lean into that. My main knock on the Cleveland Browns offense is the quarterback and the receiving weapons. There's just maybe 26, 27 better units in the NFL that have guys that are at the number 3 spot that are better than your number 1. Might be Jerry Jeudy. There's teams that are 3-4 deep plus a great tight end. David Njoku is a good tight end, but it's a piece that can need some work, and that's what you can address in the 2026 NFL Draft. But back to the 2025 season, 1-5 against the Dolphins at home, have them losing 19-28 at the pound, and this has to do with, and I don't know, again, remember, I'm recording this video a couple weeks in advance because the current version of myself that you're watching this at the same time as will be in Africa, looking at lions and wildebeest just running around safari. It's going to be great. I'm fired up. But the Dolphins of the sea against the dogs of the land, the sea wins in this one, 28-19. Tua can have glimpses of brilliance. The Natty throwing that touchdown, coming in to replace Jalen Hurts, and that drops them to 1-6 on the season. Last game before the bye at the New England Patriots and Mike Vrabel. I like Kevin Stefanski. It would warm my heart if he could be there for at least 5 more years, and I pray that they give him the time and the patience to stay there and maybe even draft a quarterback, not to write off Shdeur or Dillon, but just the reality of what it's going to be. You could just see none of these guys get an opportunity and they immediately pick out a new toy. It's like, what did we do? We took a 3rd, 5th round pick and we just kind of like threw him away. New England Patriots got a guy in Drake May and Mike Vrabel that they can have for the next 10 years together. And Vrabel is a smart, intelligent guy. He might look like he's just a lineman because like that's what he had been. He was a former player and just right there getting his nose bloody. Have the Browns beating New England Patriots all together though, and Drake May 30-18. They're able to pull out that win against them on the road with a nice little boost. 2-6 on the year though, which is not exactly where you want to be midway through the season. They come off the bye at the New York Jets. How are they going to stop Justin Fields? Mason Graham, good athlete in the middle. Myles Garrett, of course, we know what he did to Justin when they played a couple years ago in his rookie season. But losing Jeremiah is the type of player that you need to stop Justin Fields' legs. And there's a couple games on that schedule where it's like Justin's going to go for over 90 in this game. He could have 2 rushing. Like, he's just going to have that factor. Of course, not even to mention him and Garrett Wilson. It might be tough for Browns fans to see Justin, of course, do well, him and Garrett Wilson, but it'll warm their heart a little bit to see him play well. After dropping to 2-7, a loss again to the Baltimore Ravens, 23-6. It's the same theme throughout the rest of the season. I think the Cleveland Browns offensive line is actually a strength of what we're looking at. Joel Bettino and Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin from Tennessee, and like Njoku can play good on that side. DeJuan Jones, like Njoku is a better blocker than people give him credit for. But just a loss against that Baltimore, which now has Mike Green and Malachi Starks, as if they needed more playmakers to go along. Like, go figure that they wind up with those two guys. A 2-8 Cleveland Browns team heads to Vegas for a fun weekend and a win, 20-14, shutting down Ashton Genty, holding him to less than 50 rushing yards. That's my prediction. You heard it first. Lock that stuff in right now. They beat the Raiders 20-14 on the road. Of course, there's Jack Besh. There's of course Max Crosby and Brock Bowers, who's such a threat now in the middle. And I just don't trust Geno all that much next year. Him and Sam Darnold. I'm down on some of these veteran guys that people have touted as these saviors, but they just haven't been that ever in their career. Now they're expected to. After the Raider game, a 16-27 loss is what is up on the schedule. The San Francisco 49ers they can get hot, and they will have games next year where they look like, yeah, this is the Super Bowl team. Absolutely. There are games where every team plays great, but San Francisco will have it a different way where it's like, whoa, like Christian McCaffrey, this offense is clicking, and Fred Warner's flying all over the place, Nick Bosa, and they are tremendous, but you can't replace a Dre Greenlaw to help out Fred Warner. You can't replace the 2 defensive stud tackles they had a couple years ago, and Buckner and Armstead. I know they've been gone for like 3, 4, 5 years now, but still, I still bring it up because that's what you had. And what happens when you give away cap space and you miss on a guy like Javon Kinlaw? They tried to find like that piece. That's why they got Michael Williams now. They're in San Francisco. It will take time. Of course, learning from Nick Bosa is great to add to that, but you can't expect him to be a double-digit guy right away. Huge factor. Have the Niners winning 27-16, even with the loss of Hufanga and Charvarius Ward, and of course, Deebo Samuel. The following week after San Francisco, a win against the Titans, 24-20, a team that I am not at all up on just because they drafted a quarterback. Honestly, it gives more support that team is probably going to be worse next year, or like on the same level. You can't get any worse than picking first, but when you don't get a piece on the roster and you take a quarterback, like it shows you that you're a ways away from competing. Not every team can do what the Houston Texans did. You can try and replicate it, but Tennessee, they shot the gun a little bit, took a first overall quarterback, and there's going to be quarterbacks coming out, would like to see it work out with Cam Ward, but see Cam like throwing 2-3 picks and this being a turnover-laden game. That is the last win of the season I have for the Browns. If you are keeping track, that actually puts Cleveland at 4-9 on the season before their final finish at Chicago, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati, as if like they get somewhat of a break. At Chicago, 25-19, they keep it close with some good defensive play, but the Bears ultimately have too many weapons on offense that they actually are able to get the ball into the hands of under the wise play calling of Ben Johnson. And then the next week at home against the Buffalo Bills, blown out 35-13 over in the first quarter. A roster now that's starting to get their head towards the next year, even though there's a couple games left in the season. Josh Allen, they took Maxwell Hairston, who can definitely run with anyone like Jerry Jeudy that Cleveland has. Let me know in the comments, is Jerry Jeudy better than what I'm letting on to him? I am high on him. He was obviously a great player for the Alabama Crimson Tide, but just not so sure of the quarterback play if he's going to be the same guy. The next week, a loss against their rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, 17-7 in an ugly game. There might be slush, there might be snow. We remember that snowy game. One of the more fun games to watch. I love it. Give me defense, sloppy turnovers, interceptions, fumbles, whatever. Of course, the Bears fan is saying all this because that's what I've known for 24 years of that's okay. I'm 24 years old. Great, now you know that. The Steelers will beat them 17-7. Rodgers has a history of playing in the cold, whatever the elements are, to set up that final game of the season at the Cincinnati Bengals, who might just be in a win-and-in scenario there. And we see that within the Ohio, that little within the state rivalry between the Browns and the Bengals, a 20-17 win for the Bengals ends the Browns season and puts them at 4-13. I've got them picking in the top 5. Very confident that will happen. And like I've spoke about already here, it is my expectation that they might be looking at another quarterback, especially after this year, because you're going to be playing Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow a total of 4 times a season. And in order to ever at some point win that division, it's going to come through quarterback play. Enough teams have tried to do it through, oh, we've got the roster. You've already tried that for 5 years, having a good roster. People say it's touted top 5 roster there in Cleveland without, playoff wins to show for it. But let me know in the comments, am I being too harsh about Cleveland? Do they have more hope than I'm letting on? Of course, would love to see Quinshon Judkins be an MVP, rush for 2,500 yards and 28 touchdowns. Come on, baby. But doesn't seem all that likely to happen. But let me know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe for more content in the future, and I will see all of you guys next time. Thank you so much. Go Bucks.
Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blunder. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Blunder.
To the 40, 35, 30, Espinosa to the 20.